Hello, and welcome to another review video. This time around, I'll be looking at the Bright event, which surprisingly returns without any new REM units. This event has two REMs. One costs 5 magic stones, and the other one costs 7. The cheaper machine includes all units, while the 7 magic stone machine only has units that are 6-star and above. But to keep things short, I would really try to avoid both machines. The buffs to the older units are not all that significant, and any unit worth getting this time around can be exchanged for or bought, either with MP or actual money. The two brights you want to keep an eye out for are Haku and Phenom. Haku's equip sees a lot of play in Roche Zela builds for the upcoming Mercury title challenge. Some of you will probably want to get a Haku just for this use, but I wouldn't rush to that since at most you only see one copy of this equip in those Mercury builds. And you could always ask a helper to put that up on the Roche Zela. And as for Phenom, in previous videos, I have mentioned how her new Evo is compatible with some Roche Zela and Made Ideal builds. Another notable unit from this event is Saphira, who you can buy for 1 million MP. But if you are short on MP or have little interest for her teams, I would say that you can forget about purchasing Bright Saphira. This REM does have some support for water BDP teams, but this archetype at the moment is extremely weak, and the support doesn't really bring it back to life. Overall, this event is extremely underwhelming, so I'll try to keep this video short and only talk about a handful of units that I think are somewhat notable. But I feel like the big takeaway is that I highly recommend that you skip this event and save up your stones for future events. Let me know if you think that I miss or overlook a unit. And if you enjoyed the video, please remember to like and subscribe. First up, I'll expand more on Saphira, the MP unit for this event. The base can be system with 4 copies, and while this setup is extremely expensive, it is capable of clearing a good chunk of content, including the upcoming Mercury title. Though as with any mass attack based team, Bright Saphira teams will not be able to reliably perform part break. One problem with her latest skill is that it's extremely orb hungry. To fully activate it, you'll need to match a BDP plus another life blob of at least 10 orbs. Yes, her active skill does give you enough orbs on a 7x6 board to match that BDP and break. But if you face an enemy that constantly messes with your boards, either by changing its size or giving you special roulettes, you will have some trouble matching this optimal board. This orb placement guarantees those 2 needed like combos, and it also includes a Super Fua and a Hard L. Her teams do not have a lot of flexibility since 4 units are mainly devoted to orb generation, so your last 2 subs will need to cover multiple mechanics to have an easier time in endgame content. Right away, you'll notice that those 2 subs will need to cover the Cleric role and the Absorption Voiding role, so a unit like Circlia and the upcoming Bartender unit, White Lady, are really good options for those 2 last slots, since their active skills help you recover from portions. It's very rare to see a Bright Saphira team without White Lady, since her active skill can also help you tank really big hits with her HP buff. We should be seeing Bartender's return to NA in a couple of weeks. And the bad news is that this unit can only be obtained from that REM that costs 10 magic stones per roll. Her pull rate is in the lowest since she is a 6-star, but you could always get very unlucky. If you're not ready to commit a few hundred stones to the REM, then I would not recommend buying multiple Saphiras since White Lady plays such a crucial role in this inflexible team. Alright, back to Saphira. Her equips are somewhat decent, but might not be that useful for most people. The first one works to turn damage dealers into strong light BDP units, but the lack of bulk awakenings is a little bit concerning. This equip might not be all that bad in Bright Saphira teams, due to the team RCB awakenings, as again, when you're matching the ideal board, you won't be matching any heal TPAs, so to deal with super altitude, you will need to boost your recovery via these type of awakenings. The part break awakening on the equip is also a bit of a waste in BDP teams, since you will most likely kill the main body before you kill all the parts. The second equip is tailor-made for buttoning easy dungeons due to the active skill and dungeon boost awakening. This equip alone is probably enough reason to justify buying multiple Bright Saphiras, even if you don't care for the base to make up a team. But before committing to that, do keep in mind that MP is precious nowadays, as every single REM comes with an MP unit. And if you have any interest on the ones that we know will soon come to NA, then maybe don't go all out for multiple bright Saphiras. One of the upcoming MP units that some might want to set aside their MP for is Path Island Claudia. This unit is essential for a Path Island, Menuet, and Shaolin team. This team will need 3 Claudias to guarantee activatable wards, deal with Borshinks, and loop the HP and 50 billion cap rate buffs. That Path Island team is highly rated in JP, and it's undeniably a lot stronger than Bright Saphiras. So if you care about chasing the meta, your MP will be better spent on Claudia when Path Island returns to NA. Obviously, a big concern are the other units on the team. If you don't buy any bundles, then getting the Path Island duos from the REM will be very difficult. Menuet and Shaolin can be exchanged for, but most of her fodder is composed of the newly introduced Path Island units. And as for Madhu and Chakil, since this is a BGM unit, their pull rate is extremely low. So before going all out for 4 Bright Saphiras, maybe keep this specific team in mind. I am mainly making this comparison between these 2 teams since you will need a lot of MP to get the optimal subs. Now for some of the bright REM units. Again, a lot of these don't really have that many uses, and I would really not bother chasing them in the REM. But here are some that I found to be at least a little bit notable. Roche and Zela are both 9-star exchangeable units, and while all of their bases are pretty lackluster, their equips could be handy in some teams. Roche's wood equips might be handy with the upcoming DBDC BGM Gravis due to their TPA awakenings. Her water and dark equips are way more niche, especially due to their very low cooldown active skills, which makes them very easy to accidentally overcharge. Zela's 2 equips often see play in Bright Saphira teams, since the Superfu awakenings are very easy to match with Saphira's orb generation. These 2 wouldn't be my first options for exchanging due to their very specific uses, and also because you could instead use the fodder to exchange for Phenom. Norza is the BGM unit of the event, and 3 of the base could make up a system that can guarantee a water BDP match. Since those water BDP teams are not and will not be in high demand, I don't see any reason why you would want to chase or purchase this BGM unit. The first equip would be great for those water BDP teams, but again, since those are not a thing, you probably won't get to use this all that much. Her second equip has a rare set of killer awakenings, and the active skill can be easily overcharged, so maybe some teams that don't have an HP buffer could put this on a unit with a low cooldown to counter that mechanic and possibly use the other effects too, though the chances of finding yourself in that scenario are pretty slim. Norza's Evo is a fairly solid damage dealer, but again, there's not really a team at the moment that is in desperate need of this unit, especially because her second stage active skill looks pretty lackluster in this day and age. This skill only gives you a cap rate for 1 turn and doesn't even guarantee a BDP match. Because I don't see any immediate uses for any of Norza's forms, I would feel confident about skipping this bundle unit. Usui is also a bundle unit, but she gives you an orb skin, and she basically has the same issues as Norza, since this unit would really want to be used in a water BDP team. Usui's pre-transformation active skill is also a little bit awkward, because you would rather have a haste or delay effect instead of something with this high of a cooldown. I could maybe see an instance where this might be useful. A dungeon might only need an absorption voider on the early floors, but might still require you to have a cleric unit. But just like with Norza's forms and equips, these uses are also pretty niche. I could maybe see her equip be a little bit more useful in something like an Amiel or a Binoa team, purely just for the 25 team-wide cap break. But at the end of the day, I don't really think that Usui is worth the $20. Natsuru and Miria are a 10-star exchangeable unit, and this wouldn't be my first option since she is pretty weak at the moment. You can make a system with 2 of this duo, but a big problem that I have with them is that their active skill does not guarantee enough orbs to match a BDP. You don't need to make that match to activate her leader skill, but it would have been nice to not have to worry about damage void shields when running this unit. Last year, this unit briefly saw some use, mainly thanks to Rimuru, since he is a 1-turn cooldown orb generator that was able to help you get at least 9 water orbs on the board. But that was last year, and today we don't have a similar unit that can make this unit be like a viable leader. The equip is also not worth the exchange. It obviously works on the base, since the duo is bindable, but again, I would really not bother trying to make this unit work. I will say that the active skill is a little bit interesting, but if I ever had the need for this, I would much rather go with Goten's equip since it also has a haste. Obviously, it all depends on whether you care or mind the water or dark sub-attribute awakenings, but still, knowing that other equip exists makes this one a lot less appealing, at least for me. This unit takes bright units as fodder, but I would rather use those to exchange for Haku instead. Haku is similar to Natsuru and Miria, since you can make a system with 2 copies of this batch unit. But just like with that other duo, only generating 3 orbs might not be enough to fully activate the full damage multiplier. At the very least, with 2 Hakus, you'll have a looping HP and move time buff. Haku will also get a cap break, but it does suck that this only applies to herself. If this unit had better orb gen and maybe was able to cap break some other units, then she could have been a decent leader, as her leader skill has good effective HP and gives a decent amount of bonus combos and follow-up damage. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the main highlight is her first equip. Dark Sub-Attribute, her skill boost, a bunch of OEs, and a Part-Break Awakening will all come in very useful for Roche Zela teams in the Mercury title challenge. The active skill is also really good if you can take advantage of the Fortune Haste, but for the builds that I'm talking about, this equip will be on Roche Zela, so you will not be caring about the active skill. You could use this equip on some other units to take advantage of the haste, but the lack of bulk awakenings is a little bit concerning. For everyday, non-Roche Zela, non-Mercury builds, this equip might not be your first option, especially because it also doesn't have any damage awakenings. Haku's second equip does have a damage awakening, although a T might not be something that your team will be able to fully take advantage of. The rest of the awakenings are also very useful to counter negative or skyfalls like her first equip, and with this equip, you could turn a 1-turn cooldown unit into a looping shield, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people are not really looking for something like this. If anyone wants to get Haku this year, it'll probably be only for her first equip, but I don't think that this alone is worth the $30 or the stones needed to get enough trade fodder. Phenom is an exchangeable 9-star, and her base form is a damage dealer that gives you a 2-turn pierce effect. You could also make up a system with 2 of her to loop her 12 billion cap break and targeted attack buffs. If you have any interest in tricolor teams, then hopefully you get Butler Kurotobi, who is a much bulkier and stronger leader that has no downtime on his orb generation if you have 2 copies of him in a team. Her first 2 equips are decent for their awakenings, but their active skills do leave a lot to be desired. Her Wood Evo is also fairly weak. Her active skill is very reminiscent of New Ferrule, but green, though unfortunately for Phenom, her leader skill does not make her a viable leader. On top of that, there's no other team out there that would need a unit like this. Originally, this Evo was meant to work with Evo Bright Zela, but that pairing never caught on, and the buffs that these units got this year basically do nothing for this Light and Wood 5-or match team. Even though Phenom looks very underwhelming so far, with her new Evo, you might actually want to get a copy. This Absorption Voider has a lot of utility and is able to deal a great amount of damage. Pretty much every team needs an Absorption Voider. On top of doing that, Phenom is able to buff your HP and move time. The HP buff will be important for dealing with huge hits or deadly HP debuffs, and the move time buff can also save you from nasty debuffs. This will be very handy, especially on rainbow teams. Her being a damage dealer with a main and third dark attribute mean that she fits in great in a Roche Zela team, but this Evo is also a very common sub in some made ideal teams. The unfortunate part is that Phenom's active skill is on a 6-turn cooldown, meaning that she won't be all that reliable as a shield breaker and as an HP and time buffer. Her equip is a great source of damage and can help boost your recovery in super altitude dungeons. The active skill might not be that useful, so I think that most people will just be fine with 1 copy of this unit, which you can exchange for 5 GFE units. If you have Roche Zela or Made Ideal, I would really consider getting this unit, especially if you don't have the optimal setups for those 2 teams. Since this unit is exchangeable for GFEs, I'll remind you like I did last time about Solomon. That unit will be exchangeable for 25 of these units. This brand new GFE will grant you the Devil Type Enhancement badge, so if you want to get this unit in the near future, then maybe take inventory of your GFEs, and maybe set aside your Solomon fodder and be careful of not using certain GFEs when exchanging for Phenom. If you never got this bride unit from previous runs, then I would really think about getting one copy via exchange, since going after her in the REM will be a very disappointing experience. I mean, maybe you could get Haku, but her being a patch unit means that her pull rate is really low, and unless you're spending a couple of hundred stones, then I wouldn't get any high hopes. Not getting this patch unit is not the end of the world, since like I mentioned, her main usage in the near future will be as an equip for this Roche Zela build to farm the Mercury challenge. And as you can see, you don't even need to have this on your side. So again, I wouldn't stress about rolling in the REM or about spending money for Haku's bundle. In fact, I wouldn't even recommend any of the other bundles, since Norza and Usui are not all that useful in the current meta. Though maybe there's some people out there that are liking MP that might actually decide to purchase the Saphira bundle. I would really not recommend that either, since her teams require at least 3 Saphiras on your side, and this very inflexible team will probably not have the best shelf life. Her equips could be somewhat useful, especially the second one for some button farming teams, but I don't really feel like this is worth $30. It might be worth 1 million MP, but do remember that MP is precious nowadays, and that every REM from now on has an MP unit, so maybe save up your resources for the events to come. I went over future events on my last review video, and not much has changed since. Bartenders should rerun very soon. We'll also see a 7 Magic Stone Super Gadfest that includes Roche Zela and Phyllis in its lineup. The next REM after Bartenders will be Dragon Bounce and Dragon Colors, followed by Pad Island and another Pad Cafe rerun. Unless you have a lot of stones, I wouldn't be too excited about most of these. All of these machines will require a lot of resources to obtain all the chase cards. So if you're content with the teams you have already, you could just relax and save up for the next big collab or event. Though for example, if you have a made ideal team, you might want to roll in Bartenders for Bartender Alexander and Mimosa. Anyways, let me know your plans in the comments below. I did mention on my last review video that I was excited about Bartenders, and that really hasn't changed, though maybe that will in a few days, as Gonho will be streaming and hopefully be sharing some exciting collab news. Who knows if that will actually happen, but keep your eyes peeled, as maybe they'll finally decide to end this third-party collab drought. Alright, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you guys for watching, and a special thank you go out to Ages Number 1 and Awkward Panda, B, Breastfeeding Obama, Dark Silencers, Eddie Ryan, Eri Davin, and Subtop for supporting the channel. I really appreciate it. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.